Discover the amazing, heartwarming truth. Is our first civilization hidden underground? Revealed. Jake Harrelson woke before dawn. His weathered hands already calloused from years of labor on the family farm, the only life he had known. At 38, he carried the marks of hard work. A sunburned face, streaks of dirt embedded in his skin, and his heart heavy with an ever-present worry. The bustling town of Maplewood used to be a close-knit community. Now, it felt like a chasm of divisions, where people overlooked the sweat and tears he poured into the land, deeming it a labor beneath them. With suburban expansion creeping closer, Jake looked out at the fields he loved, fearing for the lifeless work of generations that might vanish in a blink. That fateful day began like any other, his tractor rumbling to life as the sun painted the sky in hues of orange and pink. As he tilled the rich earth, a hard, unyielding object caught the blade, a piece of ancient pottery. He knelt, heart racing, brushing away soil to reveal more remnants of a long-lost indigenous civilization. This accidental discovery ignited something deep within him, a spark of hope. Excitement rippled through the community, where whispers of the find swept like wildfire. Local archaeologists, including Sarah, a passionate anthropologist burdened by her family's own burdens of the past, flocked to his farm. "Jake, this can change everything," they said, eyes glinting with the thrill of lost history. But with change came division. Local leaders saw only dollar signs, pushing for commercial exploitation of the land's hidden treasures, while Jake's heart cried for preservation. Tension brewed at family gatherings. Mark, his ambitious younger brother, clashed with Jake over the significance of the discovery. "This is our ticket out, Jake," Mark argued, his eyes filled with yearning for escape. "You're holding us back," felt like a dagger to Jake's heart. How could his own brother see the land as a mere opportunity for profit? Family loyalty, once steadfast, began to fray, testing their bond dangerously. One rainy afternoon, as lightning danced in the distance, Mr. Thompson, an old veteran with weather-beaten skin and eyes that sparkled with history, recounted stories of honor and struggle. It became a small gathering of neighbors, and Jake felt the weight of their shared legacy. "We're all part of something bigger," Mr. Thompson mused, his voice trembling. "This land holds our stories." Jake's heart raced as he realized their community was at a crossroads. The stakes were far greater than he had imagined. Ignoring the monetary allure, he felt compelled to stand up for what mattered most: the history they all shared, the culture embedded in the soil beneath their feet. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As Jake prepared to speak at the town hall, his face felt tight with the pressure of expectations. His brother's dreams weighed heavy against his own convictions. "What defines success?" he called out to the crowd, tension thick in the air. "It's not wealth. It's community, our shared history. We can't let greed tear us apart." The murmurs among the townsfolk grew louder, conflicting emotions bubbling to the surface. Would they listen? In that moment of charged silence, Jake despaired, the question lingering. Could he, his brother, and the townspeople find a way to honor their connections and the buried legacies beneath their feet? The room buzzed with tension, the weight of Jake's words hanging in the air like a thick fog. He scanned the faces in the town hall, each one a kaleidoscope of worry, anger, and curiosity. He spotted his brother Mark, arms crossed, jaw clenched. He looked like a coiled spring ready to snap. It broke Jake's heart to see him so consumed by a desire for a different life. A life Jake couldn't envision without the rustle of corn and the sweetness of fresh soil. "Jake, stop," Mark interrupted, his voice cutting through the murmurs. "You're romanticizing this land. This is what we need, a way to make something of ourselves. Don't you want more?" Jake's breath caught in his throat, the sharp sting of unspoken truths lacing through his heart. I want what's best for our future, Mark. It's not just about us. It's about everyone who came before us, and those who come after. The room fell silent, the weight of their shared history pressing down like a storm cloud. Sarah, standing beside Jake, stepped forward. Jake is right. This is a treasure. It isn't just history. It's a key to understanding who we are. We can learn from these artifacts and, instead of selling, we can create a museum, a community center. A place where we come together. How do you propose we fund this? Someone from the back shouted, shrugging off their hopeful words. We can't eat ancient pottery, Sarah. Tension crackled like electricity. Jake could feel his pulse racing, the anger rising within him. What is our community's future worth? He shouted back. What price do we put on identity? On generations of stories? His chest swelled with passion, and suddenly he felt alive, like the earth itself had risen with him. He could see flickers of understanding rippling through the crowd, but doubt still lingered like an unwelcome guest. Then, out of nowhere, Mr. Thompson interjected, his voice hoarse but steady. I may be old, but I know this land like my own skin. My father fought for it, my grandfather bled for it. When you dig for history, you're digging for heart. We don't just want clean cash. We want something real. Some in the crowd nodded, sparks of recognition flickering in their eyes. Hope mingled with skepticism, but Jake felt the slightest shift a crack in the armor of despair. Just then, Mark stood, the fire in his eyes dimming to something softer. What if we find a way to do both? He proposed hesitantly, glancing at Jake. A museum and a fund for our future? Maybe I was wrong to push so hard for only money. Gasps rose from the crowd, the idea hanging in the air like an invitation. It was a fragile truce, but it was something. Jake's heart swelled with possibility. Maybe there was a path forward that allowed for dreams while holding on to the past. A glimmer of hope ignited between them, fragile but bright. But just as acceptance began to settle over the room, the doors swung open. An official in a crisp suit, flanked by men in hard hats, marched in. We're here to survey the land for development, he announced, a smug grin splitting his face. Jake felt his stomach drop. The zeal of the earlier discussion was gone, replaced by a growing anxiety. A fresh wave of fear swept over him. Would they bulldoze their hopes? Was the struggle for unity already a lost cause? As the tension mounted, Jake's heart raced. He had to decide. Would he fight for the land's honor or step aside for the sake of progress? What would he choose and at what cost? The future hung in the balance, an uncertain promise wrapped in the weight of legacy. Jake's next move would determine more than just his fate, it would echo through generations to come. Would he rally the townsfolk behind him or would fear keep them apart? Jake's mind raced as he faced the intruders, the heavy air in the hall thick with uncertainty. The officials' casual dismissal of their dreams felt like a slap, and frustration bubbled within him. How could anyone decide the fate of a place so filled with memory and heart? Who gave you the right? Jake shot back, his voice trembling with raw emotion. This land belongs to us, to our families. You can't just sweep in and take it away. The man in the suit adjusted his glasses, clearly unfazed. We have permission from the state to begin our assessment. The project is set to bring jobs and modernization. It's what modernization? Mark interrupted, the tension in his voice nearly palpable. Do you mean destroying our history for a quick buck? Our lives aren't just numbers on a spreadsheet. A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. Jake's heart began to beat in time with the hopeful stirring of his community. Each soul in the room clung to the weight of their shared history, a treasure that couldn't be measured in dollars. As the official continued, a knot of resentment tightened in Jake's stomach. This isn't just an investment, he blurted out. This is our identity. We're not against progress, but it can't come at the cost of what makes us who we are. The words seemed to hang in the air, forming a collective realization among the townsfolk. They were more than just individuals seeking change. They were a community forged by stories, struggles, and resilience. Jake glanced over at Sarah, who nodded, her determination fueling his courage. "Let us stand together," she called, stepping forward bold enough to silence the doubters. "We'll hold a town meeting. We'll gather support. This isn't just about us standing against a development plan. It's about what we're willing to fight for. Our past and our future." With her voice cutting through the tension, the fear began to dissipate, replaced by a determined energy. People leaned in, some whispered to each other. Jake could feel it, a wave of support igniting behind them. They remembered their grandparents, their laughter filled with soil and laughter. They remembered resilience. But then the official raised a brow, an air of patronizing confidence around him. "You really think a few of you can stand up against a project like this? It's bigger than you, kid." "Maybe so, but we're not backing down," Jake countered, his voice steadier now. "It's more than just land, it's about the heart of our community. You might think you can move us, but you can't erase our story." A noise erupted among the townsfolk, a mix of agreement, clapping, and a few dissenting grumbles. The room that moments ago felt murky and uncertain now buzzed with energy and a flicker of readiness. Jake could feel the will of the people building like thunder in the sky, fierce and unstoppable. "Meet us at the park tomorrow at 5, Mark suggested, his voice gaining strength. "We'll gather everyone. We'll show them that we won. Be silent." The official snorted, but the confidence in his expression faltered. Jake sensed they were gaining ground. Could they turn this around? Could they show the outside world the strength that lay within their community? As the meeting wrapped, Jake lingered behind, his heart pounding with a mix of hope and fear. This was just the beginning. If they wanted to keep their history, it would take more than just words. It would require the kind of courage that echoed through generations. Tomorrow was going to be crucial. The townsfolk would have to show up, to believe in their fight against the impending development. Would they stand united, or would fear sow division once more? The answer, as Jake looked out at the fading light beyond the town hall windows, remained unclear. But deep within, he knew one thing. He wouldn't give up without a legendary fight, one that could reshape their shared legacy. The next day dawned with a mixture of anticipation and anxiety. Jake stood in front of his house, the familiar creak of the worn steps echoing like a heartbeat in the still morning air. He could see people beginning to gather at the park, familiar faces filled with a resolve that brought tears to his eyes. It was a sight he had yearned for, the community he loved, coming together to protect what was sacred. Just before he left, Sarah joined him. The sun's rays caught her hair, igniting a gleam of determination that rivaled the golden light. "Ready for this?" she asked, her eyes sparkling with courage. "As ready as I'll ever be," Jake replied, forcing a smile. She squeezed his hand, a gesture of warmth that grounded him, reminding him that they weren't alone in this fight. The park was buzzing when they arrived. Families brought chairs, blankets, and homemade snacks, turning the area into an impromptu gathering space. The atmosphere felt electric, as if the very earth beneath their feet was aware of the gravity of the moment. Mark stood atop a small wooden platform, calling for quiet. "Thank you all for coming." His voice rang out, filled with earnestness and energy. "Today we reclaim our voices. We're here to show them that this community is more than paved roads and new buildings. We have heart. We have history." Cheers erupted from the crowd, their spirits lifting like a tide rising against the shore. Jake felt the rush of collective energy washing over him. This was the essence of community, every glance exchanged and every cheer felt personal, a reminder of who they were and what they were fighting for. As Mark gestured for the first speaker, an elderly woman named Mrs. Thompson stepped up, leaning heavily on a cane. She had lived in the town longer than most could remember, her words steeped in the wisdom of experience. "I've seen too many dreams crushed under the weight of indifference," she began, her voice trembling but fierce. "This place carries our stories, my husband's laughter, my children's childhoods. Would you let them erase your past for a shiny new facade?" Jake held his breath. The crowd listened, rapt with attention, and he could see heads nodding in agreement. Her passionate plea stirred deep emotions, creating a ripple of support that stirred excitement within him. One by one, people stepped forward, sharing their stories tied to the land, the creek where children used to play, the old oak tree where couples carved their initials, the school that had nurtured generations. Each tale painted the unique tapestry of their small town, reminding everyone that progress should not come at the cost of identity. As the speeches progressed, Jake's heart filled with hope. This was more than just an event. It was a revival of spirit. Yet, even amidst the stirring words, a shadow loomed over him. What awaited them after this rally? Words were powerful, but actions had to follow. What if the community's strong showing wasn't enough to sway the decision-makers? Just as Jake's fears began to take hold, Sarah's voice broke through the noise with a mix of inspiration and urgency. Let us create a petition. Let us show them our voices aren't just words, we have power. Her enthusiasm swept through the crowd, infectious and wild. They cheered, each clap echoing with conviction. Jake felt the surge of energy lift him metaphorically. They were ready to fight, to mobilize. This was about staking their claim, but first, they needed to unify the voices that echoed the heart of their cause. Would the town's fervor hold strong when faced with the cold machinery of bureaucratic decision-making? As the meeting continued, Jake glanced at the crowd, his pulse racing. How far would they go to protect their legacy? Tomorrow, he would need to confront the officials armed with not just voices but something tangible. Could they turn this momentum into real change? The answer was brewing in the air, just out of reach. But Jake felt one thing undeniably: their fight was only just beginning. Jake woke up the next morning with a sense of purpose that felt heavier than his usual routine. The sun filtered through his window, illuminating the little things he had taken for granted: a chipped mug, an old calendar marked with family birthdays, and the faded photographs that smiled back at him. But it wasn't those memories he was focused on today. It was the meeting that awaited him. He dressed quickly, his mind racing through possibilities of what could happen. Today wasn't just another day. It was a confrontation with the town officials. If they dared to ignore the stories and the history that loomed large in their community's heart, he wouldn't let them. They had to see the faces behind the names, the stories behind the signatures. A quick breakfast, and he met Sarah outside. She was ready, her eyes bright with courage, the energy between them crackling. "You ready?" she asked, her voice a mix of determination and warmth that anchored him. "Yeah." More than ever, Jake replied, squeezing her hand tightly. They walked together to the park, now a hive of activity. Card tables were set up, papers laid out, and voices buzzed in harmony. He felt comfort in the chaos. These were people he knew, people who cared. The committee formed a circle, everyone gathered around, each face reflecting determination. Mark stood at the center again, calling the group to focus, but Jake observed the unease that lingered beneath their resolve. They all knew the stakes. "We're not just fighting for ourselves today," Mark said, his voice steady but with an edge of urgency. "We're fighting for the future of our children, for our history. Let us make them see." Jake watched, heart pounding, as the group split into teams to tackle different fronts. They needed to gather signatures for the petition, make phone calls to rally supporters, and prepare their arguments. Every tiny action felt like a drop in the ocean, but together they could create waves. "Let us go get those signatures," Sarah said, and Jake nodded. They moved from group to group, engaging with their neighbors, asking them to add their names. With every signature, Jake felt the weight lift slightly. He realized that together they created a force, a sheer will to press against the tide of indifference. But just as spirits ran high, a familiar figure stepped to the forefront, the town's mayor, who had made it clear before that he was in favor of the new development. Jake's stomach churned as the mayor approached, flanked by two aides. "I can't promise anything," the mayor announced, his tone filled with condescension, "but I'm here to listen." The crowd hushed, attention flooding the air. Jake could see people stiffening, anxiety mingling with the hope they had built all morning. "We're not asking for promises of goodwill," shouted one resident. "We're asking you to respect what we have built." Jake's heart raced. This was it, the moment they had been preparing for. But would their voices reach him? He stepped forward, Sarah by his side, grounding him. "We're not just numbers, we're stories, memories," he urged. "What we're fighting for isn't just land. It's who we are." His voice quavered, yet it rang true, echoing in the silence. Would it be enough? The mayor's eyes shifted, calculating, and Jake could almost see the thoughts flashing behind them. The crowd held its breath, anticipating his reaction. Would the community's heartbeat resonate in the empty spaces of disinterest? As the mayor opened his mouth to respond, Jake's heart pounded louder than ever. What awaited them could change everything. Would they find the strength to protect their cherished past? In that moment, Jake realized the real battle wasn't just with the officials. It was a fight to keep their history alive in a world eager to forget. The possibility of change rested on a knife's edge, and neither he nor Sarah could afford to back down now. What decision would the mayor make? The tension hung thick in the air, leaving Jake to wonder what lay ahead. The mayor's lips pressed together in a thin line as he examined the crowd. Murmurs rippled among the townspeople, a mixture of anxious whispers and hopeful glances. Jake felt the collective breath being held, as if they were all waiting on the edge of a great precipice, ready to plunge into the unknown. Finally, the mayor cleared his throat. "I understand the importance of your memories and your stories," he said slowly, each word seemingly weighed down with hesitation. "But we also face a future that demands growth." Jake clenched his fists, trying to drown out the mayor's tone of dismissiveness. A voice in the crowd broke the spell. "Growth at the cost of our history. What kind of growth is that?" The question hung in the air, sharp and piercing. Fear flickered in the mayor's eyes, and for a moment, Jake saw a glimmer of uncertainty. It was as if he were weighing the significance of not just the land, but the people. They were the heartbeat of the place, after all. "Look," the mayor said finally, shifting his stance. "I want to hear more, but—" He paused, glancing at his aides as if for support. "This isn't going to be easy. There are regulations, regulations? Proposals?" Sarah called out, stepping forward. "Those are just words if you don't understand the community behind them. We're not a statistic. We're a family." The mayor hesitated, and Jake caught the glimmer of fury in Sarah's eyes. He placed a steadying hand on her shoulder. They had known this would be difficult, but he hadn't expected to feel so connected to her strength. It fueled his resolve. Jake took a deep breath, letting the air fill him with courage. "You're standing before not just a group of petitioners. You're facing the heart of this town. Our history is woven into these streets. Our children will grow up in this legacy. Would you really tear it down?" He could see the crowd nodding, unity slicing through the tense atmosphere. They needed to convince him, not with anger, but with the stories each person carried inside, tales of sunlit summers, laughter-filled block parties, of hard times and triumphs. "I challenge you," Jake pressed on. "Take a walk with us. Hear our stories. Listen to our dreams. Let us show you why this matters." The mayor raised an eyebrow, intrigued yet wary. A heavy pause settled as the townspeople exchanged supportive glances, emboldened by Jake's words. And just like that, something shifted. The spark was ignited. "We're not just asking you to consider our petition," Jake continued, his voice finding strength. "We're inviting you to be part of something greater, something that connects generations. Don't just see your plans. See us." The mayor's gaze swept over the group. His expression softened, and for the first time, Jake sensed a crack in the wall of indifference. The mayor seemed to step back momentarily, likely reevaluating his position. "All right," he said slowly, "I'll take you up on that walk. But I need to see your passion. I need something to take back to the council." The crowd erupted in tentative applause, relief flooding through the air. This was a small victory, but it felt monumental. Jake looked at Sarah, who had tears glimmering in her eyes, and they both smiled. They could not shake the weight of the journey ahead. But this moment, perhaps it was a sign hope flickered in the darkest corners. "Thank you for taking this step," Jake said earnestly, addressing the mayor. Hope was leading them forward, though the road ahead remained daunting. They needed to prepare a story to tell, a narrative to shape. And perhaps, buried beneath the town's surface, was a deeper truth, waiting for them to discover it. What would they uncover on this journey? What revelations might state their legacy more powerfully than signatures on a page? As the crowd began to disperse, Jake felt anew the urgency of their mission. In that moment, with hands clasped tightly and hearts full of stories, he looked toward the future, visualizing the path ahead. A path that unveiled not just commitment, but the potential for healing, growth, and unity. Could the heart of their community really be restored, or would he learn something that would change everything? The answer loomed just out of reach, like an unopened book waiting to spill its secrets. As the crowd slowly dissipated, Jake felt a mix of relief and apprehension. This was just the beginning. He and Sarah stood together for a moment, absorbing the weight of their successful step and the vast unknown lying ahead. "Did you see the look on his face?" she said, her voice a soft whisper, filled with disbelief. "He actually wants to listen." "Yeah," Jake replied, unable to contain the smile creeping across his face. "But we can't let it stop there. We need to show him the real story of this town. We need to breathe life into the history that's at stake." Sarah's brow furrowed slightly as her mind raced. What if he still doesn't understand? What if we fail? "Then we try again," Jake insisted, determination lacing his words. "We won't back down. This is too important." Across the street, the old community center stood, a time-worn structure still hinting at its glory days filled with lively laughter and celebrations. It had birthed countless memories, birthday parties, meetings, and the town's very first 4th of July parade. It needed a revival, a way to remind the mayor and everyone else why preserving their history mattered as they made their way toward it. Jake's heart raced with ideas. Why don't we gather stories from everyone? Share what this place means to each person. We can create something powerful, like a living timeline or a visual display. Something heartfelt. Yeah. Everyone can contribute. Sarah brightened up, her enthusiasm infectious. We can ask folks to bring old photos, letters, anything that tells the story of this town. Could be an exhibit, a way of reminding them what's at stake. Jake nodded, envisioning the event in his mind. Families coming together, sharing laughter and tears, celebrating their shared history. He felt a newfound fire kindling inside him. "Let's set a date for next week. We'll get the word out and make sure everyone feels included." They hurriedly sketched out a plan, charging into the community center. The walls echoed with memories the moment they crossed the threshold. Dust hung in the air, carrying the scent of nostalgia. Jake felt a chill as he glanced at the old wooden stage where they used to perform school plays. His heart ached for the stories buried in these walls as they began to work on getting the center ready to host their gathering. Jake sensed the urgency of their task. He could almost hear the echoes of laughter and voices from days gone by. With each box they opened, memories flooded back. There were faded photographs, programs from long-forgotten events, and even a couple of trophies won back in the day. "Look at this," Sarah exclaimed, holding up a yellowing newspaper clipping from decades ago. "We were featured in the local press for our town fair." Jake chuckled. "We helped make that happen." But the laughter quickly faded as he thought about the threat of progress looming over their heads. "We need to make sure this town still cares about those moments. They're us. They're the heart we're fighting for." Just then, the door creaked open. Mr. Evans, the oldest resident of the town, shuffled in, his cane tapping rhythmically against the wooden floor. "What are you two rascals up to?" he asked, his eyes sparkling with curiosity. Jake's chest tightened with hope. "Mr. Evans, we're planning a community gathering to share our stories and memories. Would you be willing to share some of yours?" He smiled thoughtfully, the lines on his face deepening with emotion. I remember a time when this town stood strong together. We fought through storms, hardships, and laughter. If you can remind folks of that spirit, I'd gladly help." Jake felt buoyed by the moment. As Mr. Evans shared his stories, the vision of their gathering came alive. Each tale told, each memory unearthed would bind them just a bit tighter together. The flickering light of hope sparkled in Jake's chest. They were onto something big. But as he looked around, a lingering question echoed in his mind. What hidden truths might emerge from the depths of their stories? And would they discover more than just memories? Perhaps something that could change everything once again? The sun dipped lower in the sky, casting a warm glow that filtered through the windows of the community center. The sense of possibility hung thick in the air as Jake and Sarah began their preparations. Mr. Evans stayed to share more stories, and each word drew the young duo deeper into their mission. The room was alive with the past, and every tale told added weight to the future they were trying to build. "Let me tell you about the Great Flood," he began, his eyes misting over. "Back in '62, the river swelled and took everything in its path. But we banded together. Neighbors reached out. Everyone helped anyone who needed it. That spirit, that's what this town needs to remember." Jake felt a swell of pride mixed with urgency as he listened. "We can highlight stories like yours, Mr. Evans. They can inspire a sense of unity. You know," Mr. Evans continued, "there's an old legend about a secret meeting place buried under this very community center. Folks used to gather there to share ideas, hope, dreams for the future." "Really?" Sarah's eyes lit up. "What happened to it?" "I don't rightly know, but my grandfather used to say it connected this town's heart to every resident. Maybe if we find it," he proposed, "it could serve as a reminder of our resilience, our unity." Jake's heart raced. This could be the element they needed to highlight the importance of their history. "We have to dig deeper, both literally and figuratively," he said. His mind shot to countless possibilities. What if uncovering this place became part of their gathering, a way to connect everyone to stories past? As evening settled in, Jake and Sarah scrambled to organize their ideas. They discussed engaging the townsfolk through flyers and social media. The idea of scavenging for the hidden meeting place became a rallying cry. Jake clenched his fists, feeling the electric buzz of ambition flowing through him. "If we can find it, we can remind people that this town is more than just buildings and streets. It's family." "Absolutely. We can launch a treasure hunt. The goal? To unearth the stories and gather everyone together. That'll be the heart of our gathering," Sarah exclaimed, her excitement contagious. Nights turned into a blur of planning and preparation. They drafted posters, and with each family they spoke to, Jake felt the community weaving closer. The nostalgia of shared memories hung thicker than ever. Interest grew in the town, stories were pouring in. But the deeper they went, the more Jake could sense a weight, a worry that the past was entwined with some untouched truths. The night before the gathering, Jake struggled to sleep. His mind raced with possibilities, fears, and the weight of history pressing heavily upon him. What if they weren't ready for whatever lay hidden under their feet? Would uncovering the meeting place be the key to bringing the community together? Or would it risk tearing them apart if things weren't as rosy as the stories painted? Dawn broke with anticipation bubbling in the air, and Jake felt a thrill as he picked up a shovel, ready to strike the earth just outside the community center, now teeming with purpose. As they began to dig, anticipation crackled like electricity. But just as the first hint of old wood surfaced, a loud shout pierced the morning calm. "Stop! What on earth are you doing?" The voice came from the mayor himself, his face a mask of disbelief and anger. Jake's heart sank as he locked eyes with Sarah. Had they gone too far? What secrets might this town hold? And what consequences would their quest unveil? The mayor stormed forward, panic and frustration written across his face. "You can't just dig here. This is a historical site." His voice echoed in the morning air, drawing the attention of a few early risers who began to gather nearby. Jake felt like a deer caught in headlights. He glanced at Sarah, who had gone pale, her shovel frozen mid-air. The excitement that had thrummed through the moments before now felt distant, like a dream fading with the dawn. "Mr. Mayor," Jake stammered, "we're trying to uncover something important. Maybe even a piece of our town's history." The mayor crossed his arms, his frown deepening. "And maybe you'll uncover something better left forgotten. Some things are in the past for a reason. What could be worse than ignoring our history?" Sarah interjected, her voice shaky yet resolute. "Mr. Evans told us about a gathering place that united the town. We need that spirit now more than ever." "I agree, but there are protocols," the mayor said, still firm but with a hint of softness emerging. You need permission for digging, especially if it's tied to our town's history. I want to have you upsetting buried truths. Buried truths. The phrase hung heavy in Jake's mind. He had felt deep down there was more to the story. Is there something you're not telling us? He pressed, searching the mayor's eyes for a flicker of honesty. The mayor hesitated, glancing at the bystanders who were whispering among themselves. You don't know what you're asking. You think finding an old meeting place will heal our community? What if it reveals divisions instead? Jake couldn't shake the feeling that something precious lay just beneath the surface, waiting to be unearthed. But we can't understand what happened in the past if we don't explore it. We need to face it. If there are divisions, we can work through them together. And if that division tears us apart? The mayor challenged, narrowing his eyes. Not far behind them, a few townsfolk began to murmur in agreement with Jake's words. The group that had formed was larger than just a handful of spectators. It was neighbors, families, and friends who had come to support this project. Together, they represented the hope that Jake felt unity through understanding. Feeling the momentum of the crowd as curiosity, Jake pleaded, "We can turn this around. Let us involve the community. We'll hold a meeting. We can share what we're looking for and why it matters. Maybe even invite you to share the town's history." With uncertainty still lingering in the air, the mayor looked at the gathered faces. Jake could see the wheels turning in his head. Fine, but this has to be done right. I'll be there to oversee things, and you must promise to follow protocol. No wild digging without permissions. Understand? Relief washed over Jake, but before he could reply, Sarah blurted, "Thank you. We'll make sure to do it right." Jake nodded, heart racing again with hope as the mayor turned, shaking his head with a mix of exasperation and intrigue. As the crowd buzzed with renewed enthusiasm, Jake knew they were on the precipice of something groundbreaking. But what lay below still felt like an uncharted mystery. A truth that wasn't just about the town's soul, but perhaps about their own individual journeys as well. "Okay, everyone," Jake called out, gathering energy from the crowd. "Let us get organized. We'll meet back here just then." A boy from the crowd shouted, "What if Mr. Evans has more stories to tell? Could they help us know what we might find?" Jake's heart quickened. That was it. The stories could guide them through the unknown. "Great idea," Jake exclaimed, adrenaline pumping. "Let us connect with Mr. Evans. We need to dive into all the stories, every last detail, before we dig any deeper." With excitement swirling in the air, Jake felt the warmth of community ignite once more. But lurking just beyond their newfound unity, he sensed shadows, whispers of the past not yet ready to be revealed. What secrets still lay beneath the surface, and would discovering them strengthen the bonds of their town or fracture them irrevocably? As the group mobilized to contact Mr. Evans, a heavy thought lingered in Jake's mind. What if the path they chose led them to truths they weren't prepared to face? The sun rose over Maplewood, casting a warm glow across the park where Jake and Sarah had gathered the community for one last push, a community meeting, a referendum on their history and future. Jake stood before the crowd, a powerful blend of nerves and determination coursing through him. Each familiar face in the crowd felt like a beacon of shared history, all inexplicably woven together through time and toil. "Thank you, everyone, for being here today," Jake began, his voice steady and resonating with purpose. "Today is about more than just the past. It's about what we want our future to look like." He paused, allowing the weight of his words to hang in the air, connecting them all in unison before proceeding. "Mr. Evans told us about the secret meeting place. We can't risk losing the heart of our community. And that's what we will honor today." A murmur rippled through the crowd, anticipation electrifying the atmosphere. Sarah glanced at him, her eyes shining with belief and support. He drew energy from her, from the townsfolk anxiously shifting, and he felt the collective heartbeat of Maplewood surging around him. "I know there's uncertainty surrounding this journey we've embarked on," Jake continued, glancing at Mark in the front row, freshly re-energized in their cause. "But through it all, one truth stands out: this land. This community holds generations of stories begging to be told." His words acted as a catalyst, locals began to speak. Mrs. Thompson, who had shared her poignant tale last week, stood again. Jake, it's more than just a gathering place. It's like uncovering our collective soul. Let us show the town that we are unshakable together. Cheers erupted. Each person who spoke shared a memory, intertwining their histories with eloquence that surged like an uplifting anthem through the crowd. As they shared more stories, Jake could feel the unity solidifying their purpose. He looked over at Sarah, who moved through the crowd, gathering photographs and letters, her eyes sparking with ideas and determination. She had become a beacon of encouragement for everyone around her, just as he had hoped. Hours felt like minutes as they shared, laughed, cried, and offered insights about their hopes for the future. Finally, with photos in hand and their experiences bound together in collective memory, Jake stood at the center again, fueled by both passion and urgency. Tonight, we'll meet with Mr. Evans and the mayor. We'll share what we've found are the stories and history, but we'll also invite them to understand the significance of it all. We're not just asking for patience, we're asking for their hearts. Jake spoke against a backdrop of nodding heads and appreciative murmurs. He felt invincible, the power of community lifting him higher. This moment, he realized, transcended their concerns with development. It was about standing together, caring for one another, and ensuring their homes were celebrated as a tapestry of experiences. When evening fell, the energy had shifted. They were no longer just individuals with ambitions, but they had become a united front of love, heritage, and legacy. The gathering atmosphere was laden with hope. Yet beneath that hope rested the looming specter of potential truth. Could their discoveries bring them together, or split them apart? When Jake arrived at the community center the next day, he quickly rehearsed what he would say to the mayor. An anticipation gripped his heart. He and Sarah had prepared every detail to evoke genuine emotion with their presentation photos from everyone written in neat frames. Letters etched lovingly with childhood memories sparked visions of joy and connection. As the mayor and Mr. Evans stepped into the circle, Jake felt the familiar weight of anxiety creep into his thoughts. "We wanted to show you all something," he began, voice trembling ever so slightly. "The stories of our people must be honored. From the years of toil and laughter to the losses endured. Each person's experience matters, and maybe, just maybe, the past is exactly what we need to heal the future." The mayor's expression changed from skepticism to curiosity, as Jake spread the stories out like a vibrant map of their intertwined lives. People's faces glimmered with recognition as they remembered old times. Strong connections sparkled between neighbors. They watched the emotional tide swell. The mayor's so-called armor began to crumble. "Look at what you're fighting for," Mr. Evans interjected, animatedly gesturing to the visual representations of the land's history. "You don't erase what's beautiful. You enhance it. Allow these stories to guide us." The mayor's gaze softened. "You are right to champion your history. I might have overlooked the emotional fabric of our town, but I can work with you to ensure past and present coexist." The sense of dread that had clung to Jake started to dissipate, replaced by earnest optimism. Hope surged within, binding them together, igniting their missions anew. Just blocks from them, their community thrived, a lush tapestry awash with promises of unity and remembrance. By the end of the night, the words exchanged had become more than mere sentiments. They had turned into a profound commitment to preserving Maplewood, to evolving together as one. What had emerged from the depths of their fears and uncertainties was a delicious irony. Together they would foster progress, with every ounce of their shared history guiding them into the future. The sacred meeting place, just beneath their feet, awaited them. Jake realized then that their transformation ran far deeper than uncovering buried artifacts. It reflected a truth ignited not only by voices of the past but also through resilient connections in the present. In this moment, he felt the exhilarating rush of love for his town and his people wash over him, shining brighter than the morning sun itself. And as their celebration rang out late into the night, Jake understood one simple yet magnificent truth: the heart of a community would forever resonate in the stories told, the memories cherished, and the promise of tomorrow that stemmed from yesterday. This was it, the rebirth they had fought for. Maplewood would thrive, not in spite of its history, but because of it. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support, and join the journey of uncovering hidden truths in stories we share. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and ensure you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about this emotional ending. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this transformational journey.